But for your sake, I have been pondering until now. Beautiful and cheerful little son times stable, reliable, and low self-esteem recently, there have been rumors in the entertainment industry that top female celebrity Yunmu is going to participate in a love show. Fans are anxious, and a certain actor is also anxious. So, under the arrangement of a friend, he put down his work and went to love and pursue his wife. 2 years ago, Pei Yuan was already prepared for the long march, but why is his wife so soft-hearted? Sunshine shines on the earth, never asking where the earth is, and in the end, the mystery of love transforms into a documentary of love. Chapter 1. The Arrival of Love Ensemble. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Did you hear that? Our sister is going to fall in love what and what? Love complex, don't listen, don't listen, don't listen, don't listen, don't listen, dot. A series of question marks flooded the screen, but a veteran fan disrupted the formation. But our sister is almost 30 years old, so we can start dating, dare to say this in this group and dare to disrupt the formation. Dog head. JPG, although it's true, shouldn't our sister go to a romance show? No need to think, it must be that broken company that caused it. Take the knife. JPG, on set, Yunmu, dressed in ancient costumes, had just finished filming a scene and walked towards the lounge. He picked up the milk tea handed over by his assistant Li Qingqing and took a strong sip. Although it has been a month since filming, there are still staff members secretly screaming, lamenting that they can see such a fairy's beauty every day at work. Yunmu cast a seductive glance at the two girls holding hands, and immediately received two big red faces. After collapsing onto the sofa in the lounge, I finally regained my energy and stared at this unsweetened milk tea, feeling some resentment. Qingqing, my phone. Li Qingqing looked at the person in front of him who was no longer paying attention to his image, and habitually took out his phone from his bag and handed it over. Taking the phone, opening big eyes, and using a small account to prepare to eat melons, I saw a prominent prompt in the message bar, so I casually clicked on the group chat. Seeing the topic in the group, Yunmu turned her head and asked, "What's going on with that love story?" Upon hearing the question, Qingqing remembered the advice from her agent, sisterly, and answered vaguely, I'm not quite sure yet. Upon hearing this stuttering answer, Yunmu couldn't help but know that it was sisterly who wanted to maneuver around, but she had been nervous about filming lately and didn't have much to do. She just casually replied. In no time, the recording came over and said that preparations for the next round would begin. Yunmu stood up and walked out of the lounge. As soon as he walked into the sun, he looked up at the sky and wondered why the sun had been shining so brightly in April. However, a few days later, Agent Zhongli arrived at the set and looked at Yunmu, who was still filming. She spoke in her heart and didn't know how to speak. Yunmu took into account Li Jie's hesitant expression. She had been working in the entertainment industry for almost 10 years, so she could guess that the company was unwilling to let people go or wanted to borrow her to pave the way for newcomers. However, she has watched a lot of variety shows these days and is not averse to them, but she needs to use them to achieve her goals. After the play, Sister Li walked up to Yunmu with a deliberate smile on her face and said, Mu, I believe you have also heard some rumors, haven't you? This is a precursor for Sister Li to start talking endlessly. In her first few years of debut, it was not her turn to compete with Yunmu. However, after becoming popular, various activities that needed to be participated in due to personal connections and interests began to emerge. Whenever this happens, Sister Li is like coaxing a child to drink medicine, being gentle and gentle. That's right, coaxing children. During Yunmu's freshman summer vacation, when she went to do some errands, Li Jie brought someone into the company to sign a contract. The company along the way made Yunmu closer to Li Jie and also made her happy to nag and care about her. Li Jie also lived up to expectations and began to speak angrily or helplessly about the company's series of measures. It turned out that the variety show was the company's investment and the first stone to ask for directions in the variety show market. A series of members of the company's board of directors wanted the project to be successful, so they focused their attention on Yunmu, whose contract was about to expire. Although the company wants us to make this last bit of money, I have also seen the variety show planning and it is indeed innovative in form. It would also be beneficial for us to record it well. Of course, the company has also taken a step back and said it can relax its stance on terminating the contract. Zhongli spoke while looking at the faces of the people next to her. At first glance, what caught my eye in the film and television city was this face. It looked bright and obedient, but after understanding it, I realized that it was the young lady who came to experience life. When encountering unsatisfactory things, I had to say something in order to appease them. Of course, there were also times when I couldn't appease them well, that was, even if I couldn't survive, I didn't want the other person to be better off. Yunmu listened and actually had some ideas in the past few days. The company has arranged a lot of work for her in the past 2 years, all because she expressed her intention to work alone after not wanting to renew her contract. Most of them have accepted it and also want to repay the company's kindness, so that they can gather and disperse well. If they participate in a variety show, they can terminate their contract well, which is not impossible. So after hearing the company's concession, he naturally relaxed and said, "Okay, then during this period, we need to start preparing to terminate the contract with the company." Zhongli was slightly surprised when she heard the answer, but she also knew that Yunmu was actually very sensible. Unfortunately, she hadn't finished the speech she had prepared yet. So, after finishing her response, she began to instruct her assistant to go. On the other side of the villa, Pei Yuan was wearing home clothes, and the mole under his lips looked particularly sexy under the desk lamp. He deliberately left a little short hair to cover his eyebrows and also covered the hidden mole behind his ear. At this moment, he was sitting upright at his desk, doing the preliminary work for his first director's film. On the sofa next to him sat a man with crossed legs, holding a teacup in his hand and a stack of paper beside him. This person is Yi Sheng, the director of Love Show and a friend of Pei Yuan. Pei Yuan beside him was annoyed by the seemingly indifferent gaze, so he spoke up and asked, "Others may not know, but don't you know my plan?" Yi Sheng heard the sound and looked like an old god. He naturally knew his friend's plan, but he had something that attracted his friend. "Why don't you take a look first?" She handed over the simplified version of the planning proposal at hand. Pei Yuan took it impatiently, his eyebrows stretching as he saw the invited guests. Yunmu. The name that could not be mentioned for almost 2 years made Pei Yuan aware of the purpose of Yi Sheng's invitation to participate. This subtle love affair was only known to those close to him after a drunken experience. Yi Sheng naturally noticed Pei Yuan's stunned expression and began teasing, "How about it? I treat you well and make you chase people openly." Pei Yuan has also heard of recent rumors in the circle that Yunmu plans to terminate her contract with her former employer and also intends to take away her related staff. So it's already confirmed. Didn't I come over to find you as soon as it was confirmed over there? Then I'll go. Zhongli, who received the guest list, looked at someone who was out of place. Pei Yingdi hadn't participated in a variety show for many years, right? Do we still need Mu to attract traffic? Recalling the incident with Yunmu 2 years ago, he immediately called without stopping. Yunmu, who had just finished his night play on set, wished his bed was right next to the crew. As soon as he answered the phone, he weakly said, "Sisterly, if you don't have any important instructions, I'll hang up." Hey, don't hang up, do you know who the guest of the romance show is? Who? Chapter 2. Love Comprehensive Official Announcement. You are listening at novelfull.audio. De co lois ara trong quatrin lay text. Chapter 3. First meeting of the program. Reunion. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yunmu looked at the sky in June, which was more sunny than April, and the people approaching were also more dazzling. Long time no see, Teacher Pei. Upon hearing this sound from Teacher Pei Pei Yuan frowned imperceptibly and replied low, long time no see. Like throwing a piece of ice into a nearly empty cola, saving the precarious coolness, I couldn't help but raise the corner of my mouth. Pei Yuan kept looking at Yunmu and was brought back a year ago by this smile. It seemed that she also smiled and said hello that day. Woo-woo, it's been a long time since I saw my brother. Crying loudly. JPG, goodbye to my log CP, circle around. JPG, brother is so handsome, brother supports me, grandma, it's been a long time since you hit the CP, so you're getting married after rounding it up, is it possible that there are billions of points added upstairs? Regardless, as long as I dare to think, CP enters the bridal chamber. Pei Yuan came out of his memory, greeted the other two, and then went in together. The people on the sofa stood up one after another, either nervous or envious, waiting. Sorry, the car broke down on the road. Everyone quickly waved and said it was okay. Yunmu looked at the scene in front of her and also remembered seeing him for the first time. It wasn't overly good looking, but her temperament was outstanding, making her feel that her clothes were borrowing someone's light for the first time. As soon as she approached, she couldn't help but be attracted. After waiting for everyone to take their seats, Yi Sheng began the formal recording of the program. First of all, welcome to all the guests. Now, let me introduce the general rules of the program to everyone. We believe that in love, everyone plays a different role, so we want to showcase every side of love as much as possible. Before the program starts, the staff found each guest and chose their own identity, including the lover, observer, and troublemaker. At this point, Yi Sheng glanced at the expressions of each guest, and the camera scanned accordingly. Every identity must be kept confidential, and each has its own task. Lovers need to find the person they like and make a two-way choice. Observers need to hide their identity but also stay outside the game, and they cannot be selected. The troublemaker needs to attract others and ultimately be chosen. Of course, if they want to switch identities midway, it is also possible, but they need to put in effort. At the end of the program, netizens will vote, and those who choose successfully will receive a month's membership in **** TV, while those who hide best and succeed in the task will receive a surprise prize. What and what? How can a love show be like a werewolf killing? That's right, let's call it the Werewolf Killing Love Comprehensive Edition. My brother doesn't need to do anything to wander away. I also want to guess all the wool correctly. Go online, Sherlock Holmes. I'm not that materialistic person, I just come to see handsome guys and beautiful women. Isn't there a lot of Shura fields there? Looking forward to rubbing hands. JPG, after introducing the general rules, Yi Sheng called on the staff to take out a box with 8 rope heads attached to it. So the recording of the first episode begins, with the theme of fate. How to group for the first time and how to stay these days depends on fate. Everyone chooses the head of a rope, and the same rope naturally forms a group. Yunmu looked at the somewhat silent crowd and, as someone with some qualifications and willingness to take the lead, naturally spoke up, so who will choose first when we come to see stone, scissors and cloth? Lang Qingqiu responded positively, all right, then you girls can guess. Whoever wins first. Other people had no objections, and Gu Wen suggested, then choose the person who was chosen first. Yi Sheng was very satisfied as he watched the guests in his queue process. If Yunmu knew this idea, he would definitely refute it, so you should have arranged everything yourself. Everyone stood next to the box, with men and women on each side. 4 girls spontaneously began to guess. Soon, Yunmu won the potential to be the first to choose, and she took the opportunity to stand at the outermost edge of the box, holding the outermost rope. Next, let me think about it. How about Teacher Pei? After all, we should respect the elderly. The other guests couldn't help but laugh after listening. Pei Yuan was indeed the biggest one among them, and at the same time, they realized that their relationship was indeed quite good. At least they would only joke about it as friends. His gaze focused on Pei Yuan, who had just been thinking whether Yunmu would choose him. As expected, Pei Yuan also walked to the outermost side of the box and picked up the one directly opposite Yunmu. Yunmu raised an eyebrow and waited for a while. Before taking the next step, Yunmu suddenly realized that Pei Yuan might not know anyone. Teacher Pei is not thinking about picking boys, is that too boring? Besides, we TT are your fans, why not satisfy your fans? TT was dumbfounded, holding her face in both hands and blinking her eyes, saying to Yunmu, is that okay? Pei Yuan's mood suddenly became clear and he said, then let's choose T. Gu Wen next to her pretended to be distressed and said, I knew I had raised my hand in advance. I am also a fan of Emperor Pei Ying. The others also started to join in the fun in a few words. Yunmu helped her forehead and said, next time, isn't Pei Ying still here? My CP. My sister is really beautiful and kind-hearted. She takes good care of the people around her, Yun. Pei Yuan spokesperson. Mu. But isn't Emperor Pei a bit arrogant? He doesn't even know the guests in advance when participating in the program. Pei Ying is a bit blind. The director of the previous film said that it was only through his second collaboration that Pei Yuan remembered him. Doghead. JPG, vaguely remember the past of Pei Yuan handing the wrong microphone. Smoking cross-legged. JPG Pei Yuan smiled and nodded, while Lang Qingqiu looked at the interaction between the two and pursed his lips. Cha-Cha stood next to Yunmu and called out Lang Qingqiu's name, after all, he had only become a little familiar with it after going out before. Lang Qingqiu didn't play according to the routine and directly chose Zhou Ying next to him. Zhou Ying was at a loss and asked, is that okay? Gu Wen and Fang Kuo quickly said that it was possible. After selecting the ropes, Zhou Ying hesitated for a long time, but still the two girls couldn't bear to watch. So she pulled Yi Xiaotian and divided the remaining 3 ropes together. After selecting one by one, everyone peeled off the glue stuck to the rope and began to retreat together. On the other end of the rope was Pei Yuan. As expected, his mood improved and he slowly tightened and straightened the rope. Pei Yuan looked at the person at that end and suddenly exerted force, pulling the rope in his direction. Yunmu didn't react and suddenly stumbled, almost hitting the box. Pei Yuan leaned forward and supported Yunmu's elbow, whispering, Teacher Yun, be careful. The two of them looked at each other. The first time we met at the reading conference, Pei Yuan was pulled by the director to discuss the script in advance. Therefore, when Yunmu first saw him, he also walked slowly from a distance. Listening to the director's introduction, Yunmu stood up in panic and stumbled on the chair. Pei Yuan quickly supported him and smiled, saying, Teacher Yun, be careful. Be careful of my heart. Chapter 4. Test of Tacit Understanding. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After the grouping was confirmed, everyone returned to the sofa and sat down. This time, everyone coincidentally left the double sofa in the middle for Pei Yuan and Yunmu. Lang Qingqiu followed and sat under the sofa next to Yunmu. Su Cha-Cha pursed her lips and sat next to her. Yi Xiaotian, Fang Kuo, Zhou Ying, and Gu Wen also continued to sit down. Yixing began to explain the next process. Next is the tacit understanding test. Everyone needs to write their own and the other party's answers at the same time. Answering each question correctly earns 1 point, and the person with the highest score can choose a room first. Since we are only meeting for the first time, we will give everyone 10 minutes to get to know each other. When speaking, the staff also gave each guest a whiteboard, and unfamiliar guests quickly asked each other about some common hobbies. After all, they will be staying here for the next 3 days. Yunmu suddenly realized that someone who fell in love at first sight couldn't have fallen in love only once. She looked at the person next to her with a hint of resentment, without any intention of speaking. The person next to me watched quietly, 2 years without seeing each other, as if everything had changed. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. The two sat quietly in a noisy environment, as if unable to blend in and as if isolating outsiders. Here comes the traditional program of love show. Flies rubbing hands. JPG, my log stands out so much. Even a quiet stand out can be considered. I can only say that these two people look like observers at first glance. I have the big prize in my hands. Laugh with my hips crossed. JPG, wait a minute, the production team shouldn't make it so easy for us to guess. Wisdom. JPG, there is wisdom upstairs, follow you, okay, everyone, prepare. First question, what are your hobbies? Everyone has finished writing 2 or 3 times, quickly presenting their answers. On the Yunmu board, it was written, acting. Filming. Pei Yuan wrote, mu. Acting. Yuan. Filming. Okay, the second question is, what are you afraid of? This time, it's the same. As the basic question for this kind of QA, I have already asked it during the chat just now. Yunmu revealed the board and said, I am afraid of heights. Afraid of the dark. Pei Yuan's answer was the same. Director, isn't it too simple? Lang Qingqiu, why don't you answer the question well? Be careful not to miss the next question. Yixing smiled and said, I answered the first 2 questions correctly, and the third question is the other person's favorite dish. Finally, the scene of looking left and right appeared. Apart from Yunmu and Pei Yuan, Yunmu finished writing with a swish, waiting for the answer to be revealed. Pei Yuan saw her confident expression and secretly laughed to himself. Yunmu felt that the person next to her was feeling better, and suddenly realized that writing so quickly didn't mean she couldn't forget him. Disobediently pouted. Alright, give me the answer. 3, 2, 1. Only Yunmu and Pei Yuan are right, both are scrambled eggs with tomatoes. The gaze instantly focused, although this dish was common, it was just too common, and it was difficult to guess. Does that mean that the relationship between these two people was too good, and such thoughts appeared in everyone's hearts together? The following questions became increasingly difficult. As expected, Yunmu and Pei Yuan achieved the highest points, even if Yunmu intentionally made 2 mistakes. Now, please let Yunmu and Pei Yuan choose the room first. There are 3 floors here, and 2 rooms on the top floor, adjacent to the terrace. There are 4 rooms on the second floor, which are relatively small. There are also 2 rooms over there, and there is no independent bathroom in the rooms, and there can be no guarantee of no sound at night because the program team occasionally comes to decorate something. Of course I want to go upstairs and enjoy the fruits of victory, Yunmu didn't hesitate. Me too. Oh, me too. Both 1.on.1 and 1.on.1 are pleasing to the eye. My sister is so proud and delicate, and my brother loves her so much. Ah, Wei has died and died again, woo-woo, my brother seems to have really fallen into it. I counted and just watched the camera 5 times in the game. Upstairs, I also noticed that I haven't seen the mole under his lips for a long time. Grandma, the CP you knocked on has come back to life, and you should also come back to life. Undoubtedly, Fong Kuo and Yi Xiaotian, who scored the lowest, lived on the first floor. Perhaps due to their introverted personality, they didn't communicate much during the 10-minute conversation. On the contrary, Zhou suggested changing rooms with Fong Kuo, but Fong Kuo said it's okay and said she's still quite asleep. After 8 people selected the room, they stood up and prepared to take their luggage back to the room. The director stopped them and said that because it was the first recording today, we had prepared a simple meal for everyone at noon. After packing it up, we can come down to eat. Everyone cheered. Pei Yuan naturally followed Yunmu, took a deep breath behind her, and said, Teacher Yun, let me help you carry your luggage. Upon hearing this title, Yunmu still didn't like it. The title he had asked him to change back then came back to him, and now he has no position to change it. No need, Teacher Pei, he said, Mumu, let me help you, Lang Qingqiu interrupted while following closely. You don't need it either. I don't think you can still carry my tea box and your big box. I'm fine, I have very little luggage, Cha-Cha replied beside her. Yunmu touched Cha-Cha's head and said, it's still you who cares. Pei Yuan looked at the two people who suddenly inserted, feeling unhappy in his heart, especially the one named Lang Qingqiu who even called him Mu Mu. I didn't dare to call him that. But he still followed closely. Before Yunmu reached out and touched the suitcase, he took her luggage, then picked up his own and walked upstairs. Yunmu looked at the panicked figure behind him. If he really wanted to take it, wouldn't he be able to stop him? Besides, I have a suitcase, so you can't go twice, humph. After waiting for a while, everyone around him left, and even Lang Qingqiu, under his persuasion, helped Cha-Cha pick up her luggage. Driven by such thoughts, Yunmu reluctantly carried the box up and had to rely on himself. As soon as Yunmu took 2 steps, she began to regret it. She shouldn't have been so stubborn just now, as no lovely girl could carry 2/3 of her luggage for a month. After taking a break on 1 step, Yunmu finally moved to the 2nd floor and was thinking about whether to ask Lang Qingqiu for help. The sound of footsteps came from the stairs, which was the 2nd favorite sound Yunmu had heard. Sorry, I should have asked you earlier. Is this coming directly from the crew? Well, I'll give you everything. Yunmu gave up on herself and pushed the box directly over, knowing that she shouldn't be angry, but the inexplicable grievances of the past 2 years suddenly erupted. Pei Yuan took the box and approached Yunmu. I'll follow you this time. Then you follow closely. Chapter 5. Good luck on the first day. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. De co lois ara trong quatrin lay text. Chapter 6. Forest Exploration. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. By the way, remind the 2 teachers not to put it down during the progress, but when they find the treasure, they can. The accumulated points can be redeemed for dinner. The referee next to him looked at the 2 guests who were fully prepared and said, if you're ready, let's start. Pei Yuan took a step forward, crouched slightly, bent down, and Yunmu rudely jumped up. Let's go, Teacher Pei. Yunmu adjusted and deliberately leaned his back, not letting him hear my heartbeat. So where should we go first? If you're on the left and I'm on the right, we'll go straight after a draw. After speaking, he reached out and shook his hand in front of Pei Yuan. Have you ever thought about me carrying you on my back? So, I'll count 3, 2, 1, let's shout it out together. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Stone. The voices of both of them rang out simultaneously, and Pei Yuan jolted upwards as he began to move forward, his heart racing wildly on his back and in his heart. Yunmu was forced to hug her neck and saw a mole behind her ear on the side of her head. The first time I saw this mole was when Yunmu went to the restroom to rub against it. One day, he happened to come across Pei Yuan removing makeup, and the water wet the broken hair in front of his forehead. Pei Yuan casually lifted his hair up, and when he moved it, he also lifted the hair in his ear. The mole was hidden behind his ear and mixed between the broken hair, making it difficult to pay attention to. Yunmu was pleased with this small discovery for several days, and even made a request to touch it after making progress. Unfortunately, Yunmu thought, her hand vaguely about to lift up, but Pei Yuan called her back to her senses and said, "Are you sunbathing?" Teacher Pei, although it's the big sun, why don't you ask if you've been bitten while we're in the forest? Did you get bitten? Huh, Teacher Pei, why are you so cute? Cute. Focus. Woo-woo, it's so sweet for me. Falling to the ground. JPG, Emperor Pei Ying did it intentionally. What was intentional? Intentionally disturbing people, deliberately seeking topics. See through. JPG, there's a treasure chest over there. Yunmu pointed to the front, and Pei Yuan walked a few steps quickly to reach it. After putting down Yunmu, the 2 of them squatted down and leaned together to look at the note on the treasure chest. Please perform a girl group dance to get the vote of the live broadcast audience. Yunmu couldn't help but read it out, while the director's staff also appeared. Two teachers, if you're ready, I'll activate the voting function in the live broadcast room. Do you want both of them? It didn't say, hey, inside. Well, logically speaking, it's like this. Then we won't follow the logic. After all, Teacher Pei's body is not coordinated, right? Well, I can't dance. Okay then. After speaking, Yunmu began to perform leg pressure lunges and then started dancing the popular online girl group dance. The vote exceeded 500,000 yuan within 1 minute of the start, and the director announced the success of the mission, earning 5 points. After Yunmu stopped, he reached out his palm to Pei Yuan and slapped, "That's great, Teacher Pei. Let's keep working hard and keep working hard. Okay." This is the happiest and most emotional word that Pei Yuan has ever said since recording. The two continued on their journey and found several treasure chests, including singing, common sense quizzes, and game knowledge quizzes. During the game knowledge QA, the two of them couldn't even pass the level of guessing and acting coquettishly. I've noticed that these are all professions of the guests, why haven't they acted? After saying that, Yunmu pretended to cry. It's okay, we still have a chance. I casually touched Yunmu's hair. The two of them reacted and each took a step back. Then, let's continue. As we were about to step out, we thought of the rules and retreated to Pei Yuan's side. Time is running out, let's hurry up. The two of them were speechless on this journey, but they heard the sound of their heartbeat, the rustling of leaves, and even suspected hearing the sound of sunlight piercing through the leaves, which was scorching. When we found the fifth treasure chest, there were still 5 minutes left until the end, and as expected, it was a task related to acting. Please shed tears within 1 minute. Ah, my crying scene is the worst. Yunmu sighed sorrowfully, I can only rely on you. Okay. After the director shouted to start, Pei Yuan brewed his emotions alone, but Yunmu suddenly made a funny face next to her. Pei Yuan was amused and had no choice but to keep herself happy. Seeing the task about to fail, Yunmu put aside her disruptive thoughts and watched quietly from the side. A tear streaked across my cheek and passed by the corner of my mouth. The two suddenly looked at each other, and Pei Yuan raised his hand to wipe away the tear. He stared at the person in front of him and slowly withdrew his emotions. Ringing bell. The sound of the deadline appeared, and the two followed the staff out of the forest. Congratulations to the two guests. You have found 6 treasure chests, completed 5 of them, and earned 30 points. Once everyone has cleared them, you can redeem them for dinner. Yunmu took the exchange form and said, there are many points for seafood meals, but hot pot is more affordable. 2 teachers, your task is over. You can choose to return to the homestay or go to another task location to see. Who else hasn't completed the task? So far, you have completed it. Teacher Pei, where are we going? I think Gu Wen and her team should go fishing by the lake, and the horse farm should be riding horses. It should be, where do you want to go? Let's go back and change our clothes first, and then go to the lake to have a look. Riding horses is too tiring. Okay, go back. She said and walked back. 20 minutes later, the two of them appeared by the lake, holding fishing rods from the director's team. Pei Yuan was also holding a bucket in his hand and said, Gu Wen, Zhou Ying, how did your battle go? Wu Wu Mumu, it's too difficult to catch 3 in 1 afternoon. Then we can't have a seafood feast anymore. No one told us we could have a seafood feast. Teacher Pei, it's up to you to turn the tide, come on. He made a cheering gesture to Pei Yuan. Pei Yuan tugged at her sleeve and said, it's not easy to fish too close. Let's go over there. They walked to the other side of the road, but didn't hear Gu Wen rose to Zhou Ying, is Mr. Pei angry that we are bad at fishing? Zhou Ying remained silent for a moment, it's also possible that he just disliked us and disturbed them. Upon hearing these words, Gu Wen's CP radar rang wildly and quickly discussed the possibility of those two with Zhou Ying. Pei Yuan walked to the shade of the tree, put down the small stool and bucket, and began to put bait on their fishing rods. Yunmu crossed his waist with one hand and fanned the wind with the other, not feeling lazy at all. Here, do you know how to nest and hook? Why don't teacher Pei do all of this before giving me the pole? Hee. Upon hearing this, Pei Yuan agreed to put down his fishing rod, throw out the hook, and then sprinkle a handful of bait into the middle of the lake. He waited for a while before handing it to Yunmu. At this point, Yunmu was already sitting on the stool, and if it weren't for the short stool, she would have crossed her legs. Pei Yuan smiled and said, "You don't look like you're fishing, you look like you're on vacation. You don't understand, I call it the one who wishes to take the bait." After speaking, he blinked at Pei Yuan. Chapter 7. Pei Yuan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Fishing is really a boring thing. Yunmu was afraid of disturbing the fish and spoke in a low voice. After a while, he felt drowsy and squinted at the person in front of him on the left. The sunlight shifted and penetrated under the tree, illuminating half of Pei Yuan. It was in this increasingly quiet atmosphere that Yunmu suddenly caught sight of the fishing rod moving. Pei Yuan. Pei Yuan. The fish is here, what should we do? Yunmu grabbed the fishing rod and tried hard to pull it up. Upon hearing the shout, Pei Yuan quickly set up his fishing rod, walked over to take Yunmu's and spun the fishing line out of the water. Pei Yuan really has fish. Yunmu jumped twice beside him. The volunteer has taken the bait, Pei Yuan responded with a smile, pulling the fishing line in front of him. Do you want to take it off? Yunmu lifted the bucket and carefully removed the fish. After looking at the bucket for a while, Pei Yuan also leaned over to take a look. What the audience saw was two heads leaning against a red bucket, staring motionless for several minutes. Yunmu reached out and turned off the wheat on his body, also gesturing for Pei Yuan to turn it off. Pei Yuan, is it true that you said the petitioner took the bait? The atmosphere paused for a moment, and Pei Yuan nodded solemnly, it's true. Then I'll wait. Yunmu actually didn't expect herself to decide so quickly to let go of the past, not to mention starting over, but she couldn't be bound by the past anymore. 2 years ago, I fell in love at first sight, then pursued someone for the first time, confessed for the first time, and was rejected for the first time. In fact, Yunmu was also used to seeing people who got together because of filming, but it was the first time Yunmu wanted to continue to be with someone. It has been almost 2 years, and that summer has passed. Yunmu has been thinking about whether she did something wrong or misunderstood. Later, when she heard some news, she no longer hesitated. Countless times late at night, I have thought about reconnecting, but there is no reason, no opportunity, and no courage. The day we spent together dispelled some concerns, but ultimately we couldn't bear to miss it. During fishing, it could be due to drowsiness and inability to think, or it could be the luck given by the fish catching the bait that made Yunmu feel a little more at ease. The two of them continued to sit for another half hour, and after that, Yunmu did not fish again, but Pei Yuan quietly moved the stool closer. Yunmu caught a glimpse and must have snatched my fish. Yunmu comforted herself so much. Pei Yuan, I'm hungry. Let's go back. Pei Yuan immediately collected the fishing rod and waited for the staff to come and settle the bill, because the fish were too small and had to be poured back into the lake. On the way back, Pei Yuan didn't even let Yunmu take the fishing rod this time. He followed Yunmu's side, and after that sentence, it seemed that he wasn't so unfamiliar. Although he wasn't very enthusiastic all the way, he finally had something to talk about. At 6 o'clock, everyone gathered at the restaurant and exchanged hot pot with the director's team because Pei Yuan and Yunmu had completed additional tasks and rewarded some seafood. Everyone sat down in groups without reservation. After spending a day together, TT was able to joke with Lang Qingqiu and forcefully pushed him out of his seat, sitting next to Yunmu. Quickly, put some meat down. Riding horses in the afternoon is exhausting for me. Lang Qingqiu picked up a plate of lamb and put it into a spicy pot. What tasks did you do in the afternoon? Gu Wen was curious on the side. We're not tired of fishing in the afternoon. The four of us are going to learn horseback riding, and the boys are required to be able to ride horses and perform a series of horse movements. Fong Kuo sat next to Gu Wen and explained. What a pity, ha ha ha. The other four just wanted to say it's lucky after listening. After eating for a while, everyone's speed noticeably slowed down, so Yi Xing stood up at the right time and said, everyone is bored while eating, why not play a big adventure with sincerity? After a moment of silence, everyone agreed, after all, this is a traditional project to enhance familiarity. Okay, everyone draws cards in each round, and the maximum number can specify the truth or adventure content for the minimum number. Come on, let's start the first round. So starting from Pei Yuan, they came one by one and drew cards. Everyone revealed one by one. The largest in the first round was Fong Kuo, the smallest was Zhou Ying, and the others watched while eating. I'll choose the truth. Okay, the first round is a bit simpler. Why did you participate in this program? Fong Kuo asked this question without thinking. This is a contract signed by our manager. He said he just finished the game and asked me to come out and earn some money. Ha ha ha, aren't you a pure tool person? Kuo, your question is too simple. Let me come next time. Lang Qingqiu lit the fire on the side. Then the smallest card in the second round reached Lang Qingqiu's hand, and Yi Xiaotian joked, Qingqiu, what did you choose? I chose the big adventure. Just now, after adding difficulty to the truth, Lang Qingqiu had to choose the big adventure. Yi Gu didn't seem to propose things that were too risky. This is my first time playing this game, what kind of adventure do people usually have? Yi Xiaotian asked as he looked at everyone. Everyone enthusiastically came up with ideas and finally adopted Gu Wen's dance proposal. Upon hearing these words, Yunmu thought of the scene of herself dancing in the forest. She turned her head and saw Pei Yuan smiling at her, so she quietly hit him and threatened him silently. Lang Qingqiu thought to himself, and he jumped confidently for a while, and the ending was still vivid. The game continued, and almost everyone had been drawn before. Unconsciously, it was the final round when Yi Xing suggested that the audience specify the content. Then unfortunately, it was Yunmu's turn to be designated. Let's have a big adventure in the last round. I like this interaction. Dance with Emperor Pei Ying. Let him get by this afternoon. This is not Yunmu's big adventure, it's Pei Yuan's ha ha ha. Everyone, it's been a big adventure. Who still watches dancing? I want to hug and kiss. The ellipsis is thought-provoking. It is thought-provoking. The comments went viral, and Yi Xing shouted for the staff to take screenshots. In order to confirm that the content could be broadcasted, he also asked the staff to take a few more screenshots as a backup. The result is out, please hug any opposite sex. In fact, the comments specified Pei Yuan, but Yi Xing also wanted to see if Yunmu would choose Pei Yuan, in order to better fit the content of the adventure. Yunmu stood up and pulled up Pei Yuan next to him. Pei Yuan, hold on. Pei Yuan opened his arms and hugged the person in front of him. The feeling of the heart landing in reality, although the dust has not settled, the fish has a hook, and he will definitely try his best to swim through it. Chapter 8. Writing to you. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After a brief embrace, Pei Yuan's hand had not even tightened before Yunmu withdrew. Alright everyone, it's almost time for the end of the live broadcast. See you all tomorrow. The others also stood up and said goodbye to the audience in the live broadcast room. After the live broadcast, everyone can move freely, but it may be the first day, and everyone coincidentally returns to their room. I can't bear to part with it. Can't we live 24 hours a day? The people on this variety show are all good. It's okay not to do a love show but a life variety show. There are many information points in the first episode. I need to go back and review. Upstairs, stop involution. Agree. Upstairs. Yunmu returned to the room and collapsed onto the big bed, his eyes not focused on the roof. Only a floor lamp was on, but the white roof seemed to be clearly visible. His gaze drifted towards the curtains, unconsciously counting the number of curtains. The door was knocked on and the staff's voice rang out, "Has Teacher Yunmu rested?" Yunmu stood up slowly and opened the door, revealing his head and asking, "What's up?" The staff took out their phone, clicked on WeChat, and said, "The director sent a notification in the group, but didn't see your reply. Let me come up and take a look." "Ah, I didn't check my phone just now. Could you please come and check it out?" The staff waved their hands and walked downstairs. Yunmu closed the door and walked to the table to take out her phone. Yi Sheng. Good evening, everyone. The first day of recording has ended. Thank you all for your hard work. The last task is to write a letter to one of the guests. Due to different tasks, you can choose to write or not. The letter paper and pen have already been placed on the table in the room. After writing, they will be collected by the staff at the door and delivered to everyone's doorstep. Please check them carefully. Yi Sheng. The live broadcast will start at exactly 9 o'clock tomorrow. Please solve your breakfast problem yourself. Wishing everyone a good night's sleep on the first day. I received it in a row below, and Yunmu followed the team after reading it. Scratching the letter paper on the table, spinning the pen, and then starting to daydream again. At 9 p.m., the staff said that all the letters had been left at the door. Yunmu only saw it after taking a shower and opened the door to look at the small mailbox hanging on the door. There was a light blue envelope. Yunmu opened her small mouth and entered the door with it. At the other end of the corridor, Pei Yuan leaned against the door and immediately took the letter out after the staff sent a message. The pink envelope still seemed to have a faint orange aroma. Pei Yuan leaned against the door and read the short words on the letter for a long, long time. What you said this time is true. Leaning against the door, he slowly squatted down until he heard the sound of the door closing not far away. Pei Yuan felt that he had failed again. People who had been illuminated by the sun before would not be willing to stay away from the sun, but the sun was not for anyone. Since then, Pei Yuan, who had lived for more than 30 years, always had some childish ideas, wanting to travel through time and start over, disregarding them. I came this time with the idea that even if the process is difficult, it doesn't matter, but the sun shines on the earth, regardless of the reason or outcome. Pei Yuan leaned back for a while, walked to the table, took out his phone, clicked on the first item on his friend list, and sent a verification message. It has always been true. Yunmu sat on the chair, and the phone on the table suddenly lit up, illuminating the letter on the table. Clouds and mist cover the sky and dusk, may deep pools be visible. Y applies to add you as a friend. Looking at 2 messages, Yunmu suddenly smiled and replied directly on the add friend interface. Can't you ask me in person if you want it? After finishing his post, Yunmu lay down in bed to rest. Pei Yuan received a reply and walked back and forth in the room. He remembered that after the group reading meeting that day, Pei Yuan was left behind by the director for a while. When he came out, he saw Yunmu standing under the shade of a tree, chatting with his assistant. Just as he was thinking about whether to go up and say hello, Yunmu ran over and said, "Teacher Pei, add a WeChat account. Please take care of him in the future." The next morning at 8 o'clock, Pei Yuan came to the kitchen to prepare breakfast, and Yi Xiaotian, who lived on the first floor, also got up. The two of them prepared breakfast in the kitchen, and it took less than 10 minutes for them to come out of the room. Good morning. The 2 boys also turned around to say hello, and Yi Xiaotian asked in the meantime, "Do you want coffee in the morning?" "Okay, thank you, brother Xiaotian." Yi Xiaotian waved his hand and focused on making coffee, then walked to the refrigerator on the other side, took out a bag of toast, and sat at the table waiting for coffee. Yi Xiaotian sat over with coffee and chatted briefly with Fong Kuo while eating. Pei Yuan was slowly frying eggs at the table, occasionally looking up the stairs. After Yunmu finished running and walked in, she saw this scene. How could she still look a bit aggrieved? Good morning everyone, Yunmu walked over to the two sitting people. Good morning, Mu Mu. The two of them turned their heads simultaneously, and Yunmu pulled away the chair next to Fong Kuo. Mu Mu, did you go for a run so early? It's amazing. I gained some weight while filming before, and now I'm going to shoot a magazine soon. I can't help but whimper. It's so hard. What do you want to eat? I'll go help you get it. It's not hard, I'll go up and change my clothes first. After speaking, I stood up and walked towards Pei Yuan. What are you doing, Pei Yuan? Pei Yuan's Yuguang kept looking at Yunmu as she walked over. What do you want to eat? Yunmu looked into the pot, then at Pei Yuan, then at the pot, then at Pei Yuan, pointing to the eggs in the pot and saying, I want to eat noodles and add this egg. Okay, do you want some milk then? Yunmu nodded with a smile. Then you need to hurry, I'll be coming down soon. After finishing, she ran upstairs. Pei Yuan smiled helplessly, touched the phone in his pocket, and started boiling water. When Yunmu came down, Pei Yuan had already heated the milk and said, the noodles will be ready in a little while. Yunmu sat at the table, holding her chin and smiling at Pei Yuan. If only it weren't for filming a variety show. Under such a gaze, Pei Yuan almost spilled the milk, but fortunately, he stabilized. Pei Yuan prepared the noodles and put the fried eggs on top, then brought them to Yunmu and sat next to him. Yunmu regained his senses and picked up his chopsticks to suck away a chopstick of noodles. Aren't you going to eat it? Pei Yuan raised the coffee in his hand and said, I just had a sandwich. After Yunmu finished listening, he buried his head to eat noodles, while Pei Yuan beside him watched and pondered how to speak. Yunmu naturally glanced at Pei Yuan's hand, which occasionally touched his pocket, and chuckled inwardly. He quickly finished sucking the noodles, picked up the milk, and touched the coffee cup. Yunmu, can I add a WeChat account? Aren't you calling me Teacher Yun? Yunmu smiled and took out her phone, calling up the QR code. Should we take care of each other more in the future? Me, good morning, Teacher Pei, Mu Mu. Gu Wen and Cha-Cha walked down the stairs. Chapter 9. Brave Striving. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. After Gu Wen and Su Cha-Cha arrived, the others gradually prepared and gathered in the hall. Zhou Ying may not have appeared until almost 9 o'clock due to professional reasons, and was eating bread with Lang Qingqiu in the corner. It was soon 9 o'clock and Yisheng went online on time. Good morning everyone, everyone's mental state is very good, he said, yes, except for Zhou Ying. After Lang Qingqiu finished speaking, everyone looked at Zhou Ying. Zhou Ying's ears instantly turned red, and he stuttered and explained that it was a professional issue. Everyone laughed and said it was a joke. Yunmu looked at Lang Qingqiu's proud expression. He himself was also an esports teenager, not playing games but also rushing to design plans, and his schedule was not very good either. Over there, Lang Qingqiu received Yunmu's gaze and grinned, but when he saw Pei Yuan next to him, he withdrew his big teeth. Yisheng greeted and said, so the second recording officially begins. The theme of the second episode is to strive for bravery. If fate is the cause on the first day, then the next day we need to see the results of our own efforts. Everyone is so punctual, there were so many people early in the morning. Say hello. JPG, I can see handsome guys and beautiful women early in the morning, I'm so happy. Zhou Ying's younger brother is so cute. His ears turned red when he brushed them, but they are still red now. Self-striving is the Shura field that I love to watch coming. Alright, those less proactive people today must be observers. Clever. JPG, Everyone was stunned after listening to the theme words, especially Pei Yuan, who had only been with us for a day and was about to break up the team. Yi Xing looked at the expressions on everyone's faces, they were all very interesting. It seems like there's something to watch today. So in the morning, everyone needs to separate and complete tasks to earn funds for the afternoon date. Yi Xing finished speaking and took out a board, which wrote the task location and the amount that can be earned. Observation deck. 200 yuan, racecourse. 100 yuan, grassland. 50 yuan, hillside. 50 yuan, lakeside. 50 yuan, homestay. 1.50 yuan, homestay. 2.20 yuan. Director, why do the racecourse and lakeside still call back? Director, is the homestay here? I didn't see any task points. Director, isn't this mountain all wrapped up? Why are you still spending money? Yi Xing listened to the chattering voices and quickly paused. Both the observation deck and the horse farm task points need to be activated. Activating one requires 20 yuan, and if the activated person wants to do that task, others will have to wait. The project doesn't cost money, but food, water, and so on will cost money. After speaking, he took out a whistle and blew his whistle, so from now on, the deadline is 12 noon, and lunch also costs money. After everyone finished speaking, they dispersed and all 4 or 5 people stayed at the homestay. They had to complete their recent tasks first. Yunmu and Pei Yuan both walked towards the door, and Yi Xiaotian and Gu Wen also walked out. Lang Qingqiu saw it and quickly chased after it. Pei Yuan looked at the increasing number of people around him, feeling annoyed for a moment. As he walked to the lake, Xiaotian stopped and said, "I'm right here, and you guys?" The other 3 all expressed their intention to go elsewhere, so after bidding farewell, they walked towards the direction of the racecourse. Gu Wen said she caught a little more yesterday. Mu, where are you going? Let's go together. Lang Qingqiu leaned over to Yunmu and asked with a smile. Pei Yuan beside him occasionally glanced at Lang Qingqiu, this person is really clingy. Yunmu smiled. She had long refused Lang Qingqiu's intentions, and Pei Yuan also appeared, so there was no need for him to have such thoughts again. I'll go ride a horse at the horse ranch, and I'll gallop on the grassland, she said upon hearing about the racecourse. Lang Qingqiu's legs seemed to tremble, and yesterday's memories suddenly began to attack. Mumu, let's not go to the racetrack. Riding horses is very uncomfortable. The director said he did the task himself, how can we repay it? So, Pei Yuan can't be with you either. Yunmu sighed, really a child. He quietly leaned into Pei Yuan's ear and said, let's go back and run towards the observation deck when we reach that intersection later. Pei Yuan nodded and whispered. Lang Qingqiu saw that neither of them paid attention to him, talking more and chattering. Yunmu, can't we run now? Yunmu looked into Pei Yuan's eyes as if what he said made sense, so let's run now. So he quietly fell behind Lang Qingqiu by 2 steps, then grabbed Yunmu's wrist and ran towards the observation deck. When Lang Qingqiu realized it, they had already run back to the lake. Yi Xiaotian by the lake looked at the 2 people running past and smiled softly. Gu Wen looked at Yi Xiaotian and lowered her head lightly. Yunmu was pulled by Pei Yuan and ran all the way to the entrance of the observation deck before stopping. The photographer behind him rushed and finally caught up. Woo, who knows the gold content of pulling a wrist, restrained yet ambiguous. Lying on the ground with nosebleeds. JPG, what kind of fugitive couple are these? Take it easy. Stargaze.jpg, upstairs, there is a video of De Jian pointing to a certain platform, and a scene from my dream appears with a whimper. Lang Qingqiu, pitiful and funny, froze in place, ha ha ha. Is it only me who loves photography, Big Brother? Dog head. JPG, Big Brother didn't react either, we only have a close dot up now, ha ha ha. After stopping, Pei Yuan silently released his hand and lightly twisted his fingers. The two walked side by side up the mountain. Yunmu talked about her filming, while Pei Yuan talked about the movie she was preparing. Unlike her long-lost friend, it was limited to recent events and dared not touch on the past. After walking the last section of the stairs, a large observation deck appeared in front of us. Beside the deck, we could still see the village at the foot of the mountain, with the cable car up and down, and the opposite hill illuminated by the green light of the sun. The two walked to the place marked with the program group logo, and the staff came up to explain the rules. There is a cliff climbing, you can go to the overhead glass walkway, and you can get 200 when you finish it. Yunmu almost knelt after listening to the rules. It's better to actually go to the racecourse, at least he has learned how to ride horses. If you don't want to go, wait for me here. If you want to go, I'll be with you. Are you not afraid? Yunmu was already a bit scared and instinctively grabbed Pei Yuan's hem. Pei Yuan smiled and held on to Yunmu, slowly opening her hand. I'm not afraid, I'll be with you. Don't try so hard, he said. Yunmu stared at holding her hand, with the scar on her right little thumb still present. When I hung Weiya for too long, my legs became a bit weak and I couldn't stand on the ground. Pei Yuan, who was next to him, rushed over and hugged Yunmu. His hand was bleeding from the sharp stones on the ground, but he was completely fine. Yunmu unconsciously touched the scar. Yes, you have been protecting me very well. Let's go together then. Chapter 10. Wind in the Mountains. You are listening at novel-full.audio. Under the coach's demonstration and explanation, the two quickly put on their equipment and warmed up. Walking to the edge of the cliff, Yunmu, who had been mentally prepared for a long time, still had sweaty palms. Pei Yuan followed closely and reached out to hold Yunmu's left hand. He took out a piece of paper and carefully wiped off the sweat from his palms, then grabbed his right hand and repeated the action. Yunmu, don't be afraid, just follow me later. After finishing these, he put the paper back into his coat pocket, put on a helmet with a camera, and walked towards the entrance. The coach is already waiting there, and there will be a coach leading the way later. After fastening Pei Yuan's safety rope, he turned his head and reached out to Yunmu. Yunmu looked at the scar and seemed to have seen it many times today. She also reached out and put it on. After fastening the safety rope, a coach followed and the four of them were ready to start climbing on the mountain wall. To get to the glass walkway in the middle, you need to step on the steel bars on the stones and climb up 5 or 6 meters. Yunmu is afraid of heights. It's strange to say that if you take a roller coaster, Yunmu is more excited than anyone else. But when you take the Ferris wheel, Yunmu can only stay where he is and dare not look at him. So for this journey, as long as she doesn't look down, Yunmu is still very confident. But if you don't look down, you'll have to focus on the person in front. After walking 3 or 4 meters, Pei Yuan naturally felt the constant gaze behind him. As someone with millions of fans, it was the first time he was so sensitive to his gaze, and when he climbed up, he almost slipped. After stabilizing, he turned to Yunmu behind him and said, Yunmu, be careful and keep an eye on the road. Oh, look at it. Yunmu withdrew his gaze without any trace, looking at the steel bars under his feet that had been worn out and shining white in the sunlight. He murmured softly, the sun is quite bright. After Pei Yuan reminded him, he walked forward and didn't hear what was going on behind him. He stopped and asked, What are you saying? Yunmu looked at the road that had only been walked a few meters for several minutes and said, You're quite handsome. Walking faster makes you even more handsome. Pei Yuan didn't believe this, shook his head and continued forward, unconsciously accelerating his pace. The coach in front had already walked a distance before, and now he is waiting for them in front. Climbing up a section of the mountain wall, followed by a narrow path, about 20.30 meters long. After Pei Yuan stood firm, he looked around and turned around to wait for Yunmu to be helped. After climbing for a while, Yunmu was already gasping for breath. After reaching out to put his hand on Pei Yuan, he released his strength and said, "My small body really needs to exercise." Didn't you go for a run this morning?" Pei Yuan tilted his head in confusion and then lowered his head to continue tidying up Yunmu's safety rope. Yunmu crossed her waist, gasping for breath, feeling the wind on the mountaintop and said, "This morning, the filming routine hasn't been adjusted yet. When I woke up, I woke up." Pei Yuan chuckled lightly and said, "All right." He put down his safety rope and said, "Do you want to go to the gym at the homestay with me?" "Okay, call me then, but don't be too tired." After Yunmu finished speaking, the coach in front asked if it was possible to continue, and the two quickly followed the coach. As I walked up to him, I was teased by the coach and said, "I feel like I can't even use him anymore. This man is very skilled." Pei Yuan smiled, indicating that he had previous experience in filming. Ah, 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 ah. Who noticed that when Yunmu was spreading nonsense, Emperor Pei Ying's ears turned red. Ah. Me, my mom asked me why I'm still rolling in bed when I'm so old. Rolling. JPG, the production team advises you to go to the gym and watch out. If you miss a second, I will cry. I'm different, I just want to go to the gym with them. With a smirk on my face. JPG, after walking along this mountain road, you can reach the glass walkway through a cable bridge. But this section of the cable bridge is blocked by the mountain and cannot be seen at the starting point. Yunmu had already begun to back down by the bridge and said, "Pei Yuan, do you think the production team will give me 100 when I come here?" "I can't guarantee 100, but we used to have 200. Upon hearing these words, Yunmu began to feign tears and pretended to cover her eyes with her hand. "Woo Pei Yuan, you've changed. At first, you said you can't go if you don't want to." Without hearing Pei Yuan speak, Yunmu revealed her eyes and saw that Pei Yuan was still looking at her with a smile. "You've gone too far, bringing me up has changed. You're the scumbag you're talking about online, right?" Pei Yuan felt a little helpless by the sudden accusation, but Yunmu remained so skilled in acting. "There hasn't been any change, I just have confidence that I can take you there," he said as he pulled down his hand that covered his eyes. "Don't cry, believe me." Yunmu was brought back to the scene with this sound. In the scene that made later fans cry uncontrollably, Pei Yuan also held her hand and said not to cry, believe him, and she would soon come back to marry her. As a result, all that came was the news of her death and the already written suicide letter. Shaking his hand, Pei Yuan awakened a thoughtful person and said, "Come with me this time, there won't be anything wrong. There is always wind in the valley, causing the bridge to shake." Pei Yuan led Yunmu and took 2 steps to look back, confirming that Yunmu had no adverse reactions. At this moment, Yunmu was just moving her legs, and no one knew that she had seen that play as a real ending for both of them. The people waiting were always real people. Walking through the swaying bridge, Pei Yuan consciously let go of his hand, and Yunmu finally regained his senses. The path he was most afraid of had been crossed, leaving only the wind behind. "Pei Yuan, come here this afternoon to watch the sunset." "I haven't seen the sunset in the mountains yet." "Okay, listen to you. There are guard rails on both sides of the final glass walkway, which does not need the protection of the coach, so the coach left after a few words. The 2 men went to the rest station to change equipment, but when Yunmu came out, Pei Yuan was not there, so they went to the glass walkway first. I don't know whether the program team deliberately took Yunmu up the glass walkway, and the photographer took photos several meters away. A few minutes later, Pei Yuan appeared behind Yunmu. Pei Yuan followed Yunmu to the outermost part of the boardwalk, where he could see the river at the bottom of the mountain. Yunmu leaned against the railing and held her hands tightly. To be honest, I didn't expect to come here either. Pei Yuan also learned the same posture, but his eyes were fixed on Yunmu. I didn't expect to come here either. Yeah, although I sometimes go to the mountains to film, I've never played with these things before. Yunmu looked happily at the turbulent river. I don't know what the difference is between the fish in this river and the fish in the lake. Pei Yuan glanced at the river at the foot of the mountain and said, maybe it's more informative. Yunmu burst out laughing and said, I can't tell that teacher Pei can still tell jokes. She turned her head and planned to take a look at Pei Yuan, but she didn't expect Pei Yuan to keep looking at her. The sudden gaze left Yunmu feeling a bit bewildered. After staring at each other for a few seconds, Yunmu asked, we won't have to take that road when we go back, will we? There is a boardwalk over there that can be bypassed. Do you want to go back? Yunmu followed Pei Yuan's finger and suddenly realized, nodding and saying, go back, it's time for lunch.